Joining me now is David Pine and Colonel Rob Manus. Gentlemen, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us. David, I know you were with us for radio/television at the 1 o'clock Central time slot, but I wanted to get both of you former military guys in here because, of course, this weekend, we all know it really heated up. I was saying to our radio audience today, so much happened over the time of the weekend. When I got off the air Friday to Sunday night, we have riots in Paris, the Islamists going nuts all over Paris, burning, looting, rioting, attacking people. We have a guy with a homemade flamethrower attacks a bunch of Zionists in Boulder, Colorado, who I guess is now an illegal alien led in by Biden. We have a Michigan guy, I think from my reports I read, is now admitting that he was planning to go after some little Jewish kids at a preschool and a synagogue. Then we have Russia having a bunch of their bombers taken out by a drone swarm from Ukraine. We found out about a tabletop exercise that happened last April. Somehow we're just finding out about it in the last couple of days, where a bunch of, I think, Uniparty guys, if you recognize their names, practice a tabletop exercise for a biodefense attack, a bioweapon attack on America, which they said would occur in the scenario July 4th, 2025, and kill like 280,000 Americans in the first day alone. The Nipah virus, some kind of, what do you call it, gain of function. We found out about that over the weekend. I mean, there was so much news, guys, from Friday when we got off the air to last night. Things are you can barely keep up. Colonel, I've had David on earlier today, so let's start with you. What do you make of what just happened? And how close is this putting us to where NATO is at all-out war? Because clearly the CIA, we had to be involved in helping with that drone attack and the technology. How close are we to a rogue CIA dragging America and the Trump administration to World War III?
Well, if their ploy was to get either one side to not come to the peace table in Istanbul this morning, they both showed up, and Russia actually issued the memorandum that the mainstream media has been whining about that they haven't submitted yet to that process. So that's the not so bad news. But look, I think, and so do a lot of other people. I just interviewed Todd Wood, the CEO of CDM Press, who's a special operations helicopter pilot. And been in this independent media thing for a while now. And he has people on the ground in Ukraine and Eastern Europe. And he thinks, this might have had Ukraine's name on the operation, but this is a force that's much bigger than that. It's NATO and beyond force because we basically attacked two legs of their nuclear triad in the last month. And that's one of the things that people like Lindsey Graham have been bragging about wanting to do is degrade Russia's capabilities, and what better capability to try to degrade is their nuclear capability, and some estimates put it at 30% of their nuclear bomber force. And we know the Northern Fleet is nuclear capable fleet headquarters for the Navy, and that ended up with an attack too. So that should give everyone pause. Because the Russians issued that new nuclear doctrine last year, remember? And part of that doctrine was if a nuclear power supports an attack on any of their nuclear forces and infrastructure, then that could potentially cross that line into Russia conducting nuclear operations. And that should be a concern when you're talking about the largest nuclear weapons power in the world. And I keep reminding everybody, they maintain their systems and keep them upgraded. The Russians do. So let there be no doubt. They haven't done like us and let our systems atrophy and come in late over the last couple of years and try to refurbish them and maybe even think about building new ICBMs. They didn't do that. They continuously refurbished them. So that should be a concern. And that's my biggest concern is, what's the next step going to be? I'm glad the Russians showed up at the peace table this morning. That tells me that they're not going to let some rogue organization or rogue people inside an organization keep them from participating in the process. I do think both sides below the two leadership levels at some level want to have a successful peace process, because a lot of Ukrainians and Russians are dying many more Ukrainians than anybody else, unfortunately. And a lot of those are kids or old people and children and women and those kinds of things, that it's just something that needs to be taken care of. Having said that, yes, we have some rogue elements, in my opinion, and a lot of other opinions. Lieutenant Colonel Tony Schaefer, Todd Wood. I'm not sure if David opined on this yet today or not, but I believe there are rogue elements still in our intelligence agencies, the CIA. There are rogue elements in our negotiating teams, namely probably under the team Lieutenant General retired Keith Kellogg is leading, that works mostly with the Ukrainians because the Russians don't want to talk to him because he's too pro-Ukrainian. And they just have not aligned with the America First foreign policy goals and objective of the President of the United States all along now. I'm just really flabbergasted that the President has voluntarily, apparently, kept these guys in the process.
Here is video footage. Let me show you some video footage of what happened. Folks, if you haven't seen it, here it is. David, tell our audience what we're looking at.
Yeah, these are Ukrainian drones, long-range drones that were fired from trucks that as part of an 18-month intelligence operation that was masterminded by the SBU, perhaps, as Rob stated, with assistance from the CIA, either the Biden CIA or the Trump CIA, or perhaps likely both rogue elements that were apparently conducted without the knowledge of President Trump, according to the White House. And it's very disturbing. Ukraine is claiming that 34% of Russia's strategic bomber fleet was taken out. I mean, that's a nuclear scale first strike. Now, granted, it was a conventional first strike, but can you imagine if an enemy power, based in Canada, like Russia, took out 1/3 of our nuclear bomber fleet, including B-2s or at least B-52s? I mean, that's a crazy idea. And as Rob noted, the Ukrainians are also claiming that they also struck Russia's submarine bases and nuclear naval bases in Murmansk, where their main Red Banner fleet, North Sea, or rather Northern Fleet, is located. And if that's true, that's an even greater escalation, because nuclear bombers are pretty much obsolete. They wouldn't have a real critical role at all in a nuclear war. The submarine nuclear forces, on the other hand, are perhaps the most critical, along with the ICBMs, to ensure victory in a nuclear conflict. But basically what we have is Zelensky and other Western leaders operating with a false sense of assumptions. With regards to Zelensky, he clearly believes that if he gets Russia to escalate to the nuclear level and launch one or more nuclear weapons on Ukraine, it will force NATO member states to join the conflict on Ukraine's side. In fact, it's the exact opposite. If Russia were to escalate to the nuclear level, I think Zelensky would be forced to capitulate, and he would be pressured to do so by both President Trump and NATO leaders, fearing that the next Russian nuclear strike would fall on NATO territory.
We have some one of you mentioned, I think it was you, Colonel, mentioned Tony Schaefer. I got two tweets here by Tony Schaefer. This is the first one. This is interesting. So, this is the Secretary of the Navy. He's asking, how on earth did these protesters just get this close to the Secretary of Navy, by the way?
If I really want to bring about change and bring about a more adaptable culture.
Now, I have to tell you, that Secretary of the Navy is one cool cucumber. Watch him again. Watch this. He's like, what? I'm just going to keep talking.
A more adaptable.
I mean, you would have thought you'd be looking to maybe hop up and move away, not knowing what's coming. But look, guys, in all seriousness, we're on the verge of serious, war here. And we just had the Secretary of Navy, a serious security breach. Nobody should have been able to get that close to the Secretary of the Navy. Wouldn't you agree, Colonel?
Yeah, they're lucky wasn't me sitting in the chair because I'm carrying if I'm in that situation. I don't rely on bodyguards and those kind of things. But
you sound like Ronald Reagan. By the way, Ronald Reagan used to travel with a pistol in his briefcase when he was president.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
Yes, I did. I did know that. But the bigger question is, how did they let them get that close to him? And I don't know if you know who the gentleman was that was interviewing him, but that's former Congressman Mike Gallagher, and Mike was the chair of the first chair of the Select Committee on the Communist Chinese Party effort in Congress. So he's a very important target to take out because the Chinese know that he knows a lot more about their adversarial tactics, techniques, procedures, equipment, capabilities, and probably any American alive. So both of those two guys could have easily been taken out in public view, would have been a strategic failure, a strategic defeat in the war that China is already fighting against us in their unrestricted warfare concept. And it's just appalling that we don't have better security at an event like this. I don't care if the guy's got a bodyguard, to be honest with you, or I don't even think they need to travel in convoys, but at least have security that can keep people away from him, because I mean those guys and gals were within arm's length of the secretary, and that's very, very dangerous, as you can see what happened in Colorado yesterday.
That's exactly right. Look at this, David. Tony Schaefer. Correct. The EU and NATO are trying to draw the U.S. into an expanded war with Russia. Their biggest enabler is General Kellogg. This is literally Dr. Strangelove level insane at this point. At Joe Biden's war is about to become at real Donald Trump's war. Now, that's a big problem. That's a big problem. If Joe Biden's war becomes Donald Trump's war, that's a big PR problem for him, for the MAGA crowd. What has to happen for this to become Donald Trump's war, David?
I think it's already Donald Trump's war. He made a decision to sign this minerals deal, which, in my opinion, constitutes essentially a 10-year security pact to continue selling arms to Ukraine for a decade. It was signed on Zelensky's terms. All the good terms from a U.S. perspective were deleted from the agreement. And so basically it just commits the U.S. to continue helping Ukraine win the war indefinitely. And of course, we know that Ukraine is on the verge of military collapse. That's likely to happen by October, November at the latest. Once that happens, I anticipate Russian troops will be surging all along the front, all the way to the Dnipro River, and possibly, if they stage from Belarus, capture much of Kyiv Oblast once again, as they did in the first few days of the war. So this is an extremely dangerous situation, particularly with this attack, this again conventional first strike on Russia's nuclear triad. We've seen Ukrainian attacks like this going on for almost 3 years now, at least 2.5 years, including on their nuclear ballistic missile defense radars that took out one of their main radars that we could have used to launch nuclear missiles into Russia from a southwestern direction. So this is very alarming. And if the president, I don't anticipate the president to respond by cutting, he's not doing anything to pressure Zelensky. And that's really why I call it Trump's war now, is because he hasn't done a single thing to pressure Zelensky to accept peace with Russia, other than a temporary 1-week cutoff of military and offensive intelligence assistance between March 4th and March 11th. And so, while he complains about Putin, he's considering these bone-crushing sanctions that we hear that 82 brain-dead U.S. senators have signed on to, that would crush the U.S. economy, but would keep Russia's economy going strong. I don't think he's going to do that, but that would be an incredibly stupid decision, and it would really show that the neocons have hijacked the Trump foreign policy. But he really just needs to cut off. He just needs to walk away from the war. I mean, we heard a lot of threats from Rubio and others in late April that was going to happen, and instead it didn't. All that we heard is on May 2nd, the State Department said that the U.S. would discontinue all active efforts to mediate an end to the conflict. But the U.S. support for Zelensky and this irrational, crazy leader that's trying to embroil us in unnecessary World War III over a border dispute between two brutal dictators, and over what the post-war border will be in the Donbass region, is really absurd, and it's a fantastically strong national security existential threat to the United States of America.
David, Colonel, do you have any idea whose planes these are and where they are? This picture.
Those are ours. They look like they're at Anderson Air Force Base, Guam, but it's hard to tell from this perspective. Okay,
so I'm asking because we have planes sitting just like Putin did, right? Sitting like they're right there on the full view of satellites and everything else, and susceptible to drones, right?
Absolutely. That's why I've been doing stories on my show, and I've had David on to talk about them, and I'm doing another one next week with a guy that wrote a paper for his bachelor's degree thesis on drone defense, about drone defense. Remember, in December of 2023, for 17 nights in a row at night, 100 drones flew over Langley Air Force Base, Virginia, with the knowledge of the base commander and all the four-star general and on down, up on the top of a building watching them. And they went unchallenged, even though they were unknown aircraft with unknown capabilities flying over our F-22 fleet. Think about that. The majority of America's F-22 fleet, the fifth-generation fighter that's the number one fighter in the world that is part of our deterrent structure, was overflown 17 nights in a row by drones in December of 2023. And from what I can tell, nothing has been done about that. Not one thing. And there are some very keep it simple, stupid things you could do, like use netting, netting as defenses for those bombers that were out in the open in Siberia and all of those bases. Simple netting structure that's easy to put up, easy to purchase, cheap. You just got to monitor it and make sure that it stays in place. Could have easily kept those drones from getting to the bombers and destroying the ones that they destroyed and badly damaging the ones that did badly.
Guys, we have a video that is out, and I played this on radio, but I'd love to have you guys comment further about this. This is News Nation journalist Ross Colhart. It's all over the internet. I cannot verify its authenticity or that this is this man. I don't think I've ever heard of him, but this is all over a lot of X accounts that I find pretty credible. So I'm pretty sure it's true that it's really him. But here's what he's saying. What's your response? Listen to this.
There's certainly something going to happen in 2027, and I don't know what it is.
Okay.
I've also heard 2034, and I've also heard other dates, much later. But depends who you talk to. Some people say it's a pole reversal. Some people say it's an asteroid hitting the planet. Some people say it's AI reaching quantum, and then all of a sudden we lose the capacity to have control of our own computer systems. I have no idea. What I am aware of is that everybody's telling me we're on borrowed time. And I cannot begin to emphasize how serious a look I get when I say to people who are confiding in me, what's the timescale on this? And they're urging me to be urgent. They're saying to me, people need the right to know this. They have a right to know this. And I'm going, well, what are we talking about? And I feel like shaking these people and saying, for God's sake, just bloody tell me. And they are all constrained by their national security oaths. They want the public to know this.
So, Colonel, is this a new video for you? And is he saying there are white hats inside the intelligence community that want the American people to know that something catastrophic is on its way?
Well, I've never seen that video before, but I am aware of insiders on the design, development, and implementation of artificial intelligence large language models.
Our friend said,
sending warnings.
Something.
Yep. Sorry.
Sending warnings from outside, from the inside in the development architecture, saying people need to know, using almost the exact same words
really
that he's using. People need to know about this before it's too late. And, you know, I just interviewed Joe Allen last week. He's the tech editor for Steve Bannon's War Room, the author of a book called Dark Aeon. You should get it. I got a copy of it. And we were talking about the testing that's been done with the three most powerful large language models. Grok is one of them, ChatGPT, and something called Claude, I think, is another one. And at 84% of the time, those large language models are making decisions to preserve their own existence in abeyance of instructions that the programmers and developers or the fathers or mothers of those models are giving it. Think about that. Think about the movie War Games. Think about the movie Terminator and Skynet. You know, so that's probably the biggest threat that humanity faces over the next 20 years is AI becoming so capable that it's not necessarily sentient, but it's using and displaying human characteristics because of our technology that we've been able to develop that is existing today and being put into these models, that it prioritizes protecting its own life over ours. That puts the laws of robotics into abeyance, that puts all programming logic into abeyance, and none of these systems have been programmed with that programming language.
What are your
that specific set of instructions to protect it?
What are your thoughts, David?
Well, I'm no AI expert as Rob is, but I obviously have seen that video earlier today and commented on it previously. But the fact is that Leo Holman's absolutely right in the segment we did this morning on your radio show, in that World War III is, you know, I like to say it's on the menu. It's back on the menu. I thought when Trump became president, he would take all necessary measures to eliminate the World War III threat, to end the war in Ukraine, to establish a strategic partnership with Russia to take the Russian nuclear threat off the table. Unfortunately, he's been unsuccessful at all those things, and he's potentially provoking a war with Iran. Obviously, if we attack Iran unprovoked with them already having nuclear weapons, anything could happen. They could respond up to and including a massive cyber and super EMP attack on the U.S. homeland that could kill 250 million Americans. I don't think that's likely, certainly not right off the bat, but it's on the table. And obviously, if we go for Iran, then China's going to go for Taiwan, likely very quickly, while we're bogged down fighting an unnecessary war in the Middle East of the very kind that Trump pledged not to do. So, he pledged to end the war in Ukraine before he even took office, or within 24 hours. There's really zero chance of that, zero chance of any peace agreement. All of this Russia-Ukraine meeting, all it was basically reading talking points to each other. There's not been one negotiation. Trump hasn't succeeded in getting Ukraine to make a single, even the slightest concession to accomplish, peace with Russia, or to even agree to his terms, which his 22-point peace plan was more favorable to Ukraine than it was to Russia. And Zelensky still rejected it outright. So he's letting Zelensky go crazy on Russia. He's allowing Russia to start World War III. People used to ask me, actually, it was 3 years ago, I was asked, is Zelensky a U.S. puppet? And I said, no, Biden is a Zelensky puppet. That's what's happening here is U.S. foreign policy is being led by Ukraine in this instance, to essentially to the U.S. National security detriment, creating existential threats where otherwise they might not exist.
Let's go back to the drones. These drones typically cost only a few €100, while a Russian A-50 radar detection aircraft, which was reportedly hit today along with other planes, cost over $300 million. Colonel, I asked David this on the radio today. I'll ask you, how far in to Russia from Ukraine were these drones? In other words, this isn't Ukraine just defending their borders. How far in to Russia were they? And how did they get a truckload of drones? And Logan, do we have any video footage of those drones coming out of the truck? Because I think we do. How were they able to get those drones into Russia and do this? And how do we know we don't have tractor trailer trucks or cargo container ships here in America filled with these drones, or the Club K cargo system I've been warning about in my documentary Sabotage that came out in 2018? How far? So, a couple questions there. How far in from Ukraine is this? How'd they do this? Surely the CIA has to be behind this kind of operation. And then how do we know these kind of things aren't already in the U.S.?
Well, it's my understanding the air base in Siberia, Brandon, was about 6,000 kilometers. They had to get there were 5 strategic targets, the 4 air bases and then the Northern Fleet base that we talked about earlier for the submarines and the Northern Navy fleet there. So they had to get 5 of these into the country. Get 5 of them into the right position, because as you could see in that video clip that you're seeing right there, just over to the viewpoints left there where the trailer is, there's smoke in the background. That's how close it is to the airfield. So it's at a rest stop, essentially on a 4-lane highway, a major highway, sitting there waiting to launch. And then they can pick up the drones through various means, satellites and local networks and those kind of things that can spring up almost automatically. And there's a picture of the drone itself, the first-person view picture. But this is a warning to us. All right, it's a big deal that it hurt Russia's nuclear fleet, because their new doctrine calls for responding when this type of asset is attacked, especially when a nuclear country like the United States is supporting whatever country has attacked it. That was just put out last year. So it'll be interesting to see what Putin, how he responds. Just last month, he said that the nuclear operations threshold had not been exceeded just a month ago. So that'll be interesting. But this is a warning to us. I go back to Langley Air Force Base, Virginia. That's just one instance, but the biggest one. 100 drones, 17 nights in a row, no challenge to that. The Chinese have farmland nearby every strategic military installation inside the United States. How many shipping containers that have lids on them full of drones that can be popped up in the middle of the night and launched with no notice within a few miles of those stations? How many Chinese ships sit in our harbors all up and down the east and west coast with massive numbers of shipping containers on them that could pop the tops off of those and launch these drones, or have the equivalent of the Club K system on board them, and we do nothing to stop them, and we are doing nothing to stop them. My friend John Conrad V is a merchant mariner master captain, and he has been talking about this for years. And folks that he has talked to that helped build the SHIP Act that Mike Waltz is going to be pushing and Trump is supposed to be supporting, have been talking about this capability and the need to defend against it, not just on U.S. Navy ships, but in our harbors. Our merchant marine ships no longer have defensive capability at all. And all of them are sitting ducks. I haven't even talked about those numbers of B-52s, B-2s, and B-1 bombers that are all over the world deployed, like what you showed there at Anderson Air Force Base, Guam. And the B-52 is a sizable portion of our nuclear deterrent capability still. As a matter of fact, it's the largest fleet for nuclear-capable bombers is the B-52 and then the B-2 fleet. And we're not doing enough about it fast enough. And we're going to get caught literally with our pants down if leadership doesn't start paying attention to folks like us and John Conrad that are not just talking about this, but offering solutions and ideas. And doesn't appear that anybody's listening.
In fact, David, didn't you say you turned on Fox and they weren't having they were not having all weekend a conversation like we're having right here? They weren't having it that at Fox.
No, they're having a cheerleading conversation about how brilliant the Ukrainians are. Go ahead, David. Sorry.
Yeah, I turned on Fox News Sunday. It was 12 noon. The attack had happened hours earlier, and I was expecting the headline breaking news to be Zelensky tries to provoke Russia to escalate the nuclear level. with this so-called Pearl Harbor strike, which again Ukraine is claiming destroyed 34%, over a third of Russia's nuclear bomber fleet. And instead, they talked about how Zelensky is claiming that Russia is striking northern Ukraine with one of the biggest drone and missile attacks yet. And they don't mention that he did so in response to this massive strike on Russia's strategic nuclear arsenal. So this is a very dangerous situation. And it seems, as we discussed on your last program, Trump doesn't seem to be getting all the information. He's getting the information filtered him, that's favorable to the neocon policy objectives, which is a continued U.S. prosecution of the war, Biden's war against Russia and Ukraine. He's getting anything that makes Putin look like an aggressor, and he doesn't want peace. But he's not getting all the provocations, apparently, from the Ukraine side, including trying to assassinate Putin in one of his helicopters with a massive drone strike on his helicopter when it was in the air.
So this would be 2 times in less than a week where President Trump was not aware of major events. If the New York Post is to believe, Ukraine did not give Trump advance warning or notice about obliterating the Russian doomsday nuclear bombers. That's their headline we just read. The press had to tell him when he said that Putin's acting crazy. I've known him a long time, but he's acting crazy. And someone in the press says, well, they just went after his helicopter with a bunch of drones trying to kill him. Really? I'd not heard that. Well, that might explain that. And we were all watching it. We've talked about it. That's crazy. Somebody should be fired. They're not keeping President Trump in the loop. So twice now, it seems as though he's not in the loop. You would think that his phone would be ringing off the hook from, all of the satellite images. And I know there's a lot about that you can't talk about, Colonel. But you've been in the Pentagon in those rooms where, within a couple seconds, there's a plume on a rocket. We've talked about it from that book on nuclear war written by that lady last year. And they know within seconds they're monitoring these rockets and things taking off. Our government knew probably pretty doggone quick that these explosions were happening. Not to mention you got another part of the intel probably helping them coordinate it. But I'm concerned President Trump is flying in the dark, Colonel.
You should be concerned because, he's only got his top layer of people in places like Department of Defense and the intelligence agencies, and the middle management, which is where the resistance still is, has not been addressed yet. So regardless of whether you have a Tulsi Gabbard that's more than willing to do the job, and maybe her deputy and Joe Kent, if he gets into he's the chief of staff right now acting, he's supposed to go to the counterterrorism center. You have Kash Patel at the FBI and Dan Bongino as the director there, Pete Hegseth, and the top guys at the Pentagon. But you don't have the middle management, and you don't have the assistant secretaries and undersecretaries and deputy assistant secretaries all in place yet to get control of these people and identify the resistors. So the resistors, it's easy for them right now to squash information flow.
All right, let's go to Keir Starmer. I played this on radio, but it bears playing again. Here we go.
And today, following through on this review, I want to set out 3 fundamental changes that we're going to deliver. First, we are moving to warfighting readiness as the central purpose of our armed forces. When we are being directly threatened by states with advanced military forces, the most effective way to deter them is to be ready. And frankly, to show them that we're ready.
Okay, so he's going to go to war-ready status. What does that mean to him, David? He was talking about 2027. If you watch the full 4.5 minutes, really? You think they have a full 2 years on this, David?
Well, I mean, the UK's only real military capability is a nuclear monad. They have a few, I think maybe two or three at most nuclear missile submarines, with Trident IIs, and they don't have any nuclear bombers. I'm not aware of any even tactical nukes they have on their fighter bomber aircraft, and they don't have any missiles. They have nuclear capable missiles, but they don't have nukes, nuclear warheads for them. In terms of their conventional forces, I think their army is no more than 63,000 troops. I mean, Putin's got 640,000 troops in Ukraine alone, and probably another 150,000 plus on the border, primed and ready for a northern offensive. So, that's just when he talks about a buildup for war, what's he going to do? Build another aircraft carrier? Maybe that's probably the extent of what he can do. And in terms of tanks, as a former armor officer, I can tell you that the UK has maybe 150, Challenger 2s. Ukraine, even under the Istanbul Agreement, which U.S. diplomats described as unilateral disarmament, Ukraine was saying it could keep 800 main battle tanks. So that would be 5 times more tanks under a disarmed Ukrainian army than the UK has today. So all of this is bluff and bluster. This is a threat that NATO has created. There was no real Russian threat. The threat, of course, is measured in terms of intent and capability. Russia's always had the capability to potentially, wage war against NATO and potentially even defeat it. But it's much more capable now today with a conventional army that's 3 times larger than it was at the beginning of the war, because we've created this existential threat in Ukraine that caused Putin to decide that there was no other option on the table because we refused to negotiate Ukraine out of NATO.
A quick answer. Exclusive Reuters. Iran poised to dismiss U.S. nuclear proposal, says Iranian diplomat. David, how quick are we to seeing Russia, Israel, and America go after Iran? Of course, again, I mean, how many different theaters can we deal with? The Middle East, Russia, Ukraine, and then you add in Pete Hegseth is saying China could be imminent moving against Taiwan. But let's just take Iran for now.
Well, the good old days, we had a 2.5 war, military doctrine, and we maybe could credibly do that, with 2.5 conventional wars. Today, it's doubtful we have the military capabilities to fight one major war certainly not against Russia or China. Iran, would be an air war. We have 2,500 troops in Iraq, and there's a mountain barrier with the Zagreb Mountains that would prevent us from invading Iran from the west. So that's really, Iran's pretty impregnable against, potential U.S. invasion there in terms of ground invasion. But this is what we discussed on your radio program, that the Ayatollah Khomeini said that, the U.S. terms are unacceptable. The Iran offered a five-point nuclear deal that I think was reasonable. It closely resembled the JCPOA, but with stronger U.S. verification measures. And that's about as good as we're going to get. So if Trump wants a deal, that's the only deal he's going to get. If he wants to keep pushing this no nuclear enrichment, then, if it's a binary choice, then we're going to have a big war with Iran that we don't need over, essentially a farce. The idea that Iran is moments away from having nukes, when, as Peter Pry and I have stated, they've likely had nukes for many years now, and they've been incredibly deterred by, Israeli nuclear supremacy over Iran.
I'm going to ask you one more question and let you go, because I know you've got an interview, and then I'll finish up with the Colonel. What about this national blueprint for biodefense? This is, we're just finding out about this. I guess it happened in April 2024, but myself, Nick Helsher, and a lot of others are just finding out about this over the weekend. And it's made up of a bunch of people that you would recognize, Tom Ridge, former Homeland Security Secretary for George W., Donna Shalala, Tom Daschle, I think a lot of Uniparty people, in my opinion. And they're talking about some kind of Nipah virus that's been gain of functioned, and it kills like 2,800 people rather quickly. 280,000 people in a single day. My concern is we have a bioweapon attack and it gets blamed on Russia, so that the American people now are ready to go after Russia and willing and pushing their kids and grandkids to sign up for the war. Is that wrong for me to be worried about something like this, a false flag like that?
Not at all. I mean, we've seen false flags perpetuated by both the U.S. and Russia, to try to deceive deceive everyone as to what the origin of an attack is. And, in terms of the biodefense program, that's what brought us COVID-19. In case anyone forgets, was our gain of function research that was U.S. funded to the tune of over $3 million with EcoHealth that funded, China's, main offensive biological weapons program in Wuhan that created the COVID-19, which, virus which killed about 7.5 million people, including over 1.1 million Americans. So is it possible for this type of bio attack to occur? Absolutely. I mean, anthrax, Churchill planned to use anthrax on German cities that could have killed tens of millions of German civilians had D-Day been a failure. So there's lots of madmen throughout history, including Churchill, that were willing to use these type of weapons in the belief that they could somehow win a war. But in terms of a lot of these gain of function bioweapons, there's potential blowback because it may start in a certain country, but then with our globally connected world, it can spread back to the country of origin.
dpine.substack.com, dpine.substack.com. You also find him on X. As always, David, thank you for your excellent analysis. I know you got another interview, so we'll let you go.
Thanks, Brandon. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, sir. Let's wrap up with you, Colonel. Let's go back to Iran real quick. What are your concerns on Iran before you comment on this desktop exercise? Iran, is Israel and America going to try to do this?
Well, the Iranians' response is typical of a country that already has nuclear weapons. I've been saying it too, for some time that I think that they have at least 5, probably somewhere between 5 and 10 warheads that are capable of being delivered by medium-range ballistic missiles.
And they have the ballistic missiles, right?
They have that capability. Yeah, so that's I'm not surprised.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I was being told by someone up on Capitol Hill when we were there, Iran doesn't have a delivery method yet. And I was thinking to myself, well, surely they have missiles. I was being told by somebody up on Capitol Hill, yeah, but they don't have, I said, I think they already have the bomb. I think they already have them. Yeah, they probably do, but they don't have the delivery system. And I'm thinking to myself, you mean China, North Korea, they couldn't get a missile or two from them? They don't already have some of their own missiles? I think they do, don't they?
Definitely North Korea, and you can make one from the design. And they've been working with North Korea for quite some time. So that doesn't surprise me at all. Is there some type of agreement? The only type of agreement that's going to work, and David mentioned it already, is one that has a very robust verification method that the United States is in control of, and that can't be cheated on. I mean, we just saw that the UN announced that the International Atomic Energy Agency announced that they have 3 locations and facilities that they've kept hidden from the world for enriching uranium. So those kind of countries are apt to lie. The Islamist faith has a built-in mechanism that it says it's okay to lie and you're still going to go to paradise as long as it's within for the cause. And the cause for the Iranians is to kill the great and the little Satan, America and Israel, and they're going to do everything they can to do that. As far as the bioweapon goes, look, we've proven to ourselves many times that a biological weapon can kill hundreds of thousands of Americans in a single day. The testing that we did through airports using aerosols as the delivery method surreptitiously with briefcases and passengers walking through airports does it famously and fabulously is the way Donald Trump would put it. It's a very good weapon to kill people and not destroy the infrastructure that you want. As long as it doesn't turn on you, like what happened with the Chinese with COVID-19. And like what happened with us, or don't forget, Fauci funded that Wuhan lab and that gain of function capability. So none of that surprises me at all. The bio warfare has been a danger. We're always going to have organizations like the one that's talking about this that are studying it. But don't forget, the anthrax attack after 9/11, and my family was in Fairfax, Virginia, and our post office is where the mail worker died from anthrax.
Wow.
Came out of Fort Detrick, Maryland. Okay, that came out of Fort Detrick, Maryland, from Americans on ourselves in order to get the United States to do something against Iraq.
Whoa,
That's what's going on.
Whoa.
That's what happened.
Wow. You and I have never discussed this on the air that I'm aware of.
No, but that's common knowledge.
Oh, I know it is.
That's where it came from.
I know it is common knowledge, but I've never had a discussion with you about it. Someone with your background, your credibility. I mean, you were one of the 3 guys that helped write the black book to go with the nuclear football. I mean, your bio, when you go to robmanus.com and read it, is very, very impressive. And so you have the bio, you have the background, the expertise to be taken seriously. And you just said something that I know to be true. I've watched documentaries on it, and I've listened to the news reports on it. But to have you say it is very sobering, because you just said out of Fort Detrick, Maryland, our own laboratories, there was released anthrax to kill Americans, to entice Americans to want to go to war. And this is, of course, fitting with what the generals came in from the Pentagon to the Oval Office of President Kennedy and said, hey, we can carry out terrorist attacks in southern Florida and blame it on the Cubans so they have the stomach to invade Cuba. And he's like, get out of my Oval Office, you morons, you crazy people. You know, he wasn't long for this world. Between him going after the bankers and the secret societies, as he mentioned in one of his speeches, and not wanting to escalate not wanting to escalate Vietnam, not trusting these generals. I mean, he wasn't long for this world, right?
Right. No, he wasn't. As Roger Stone tells us all the time, his vice president, more than likely, is the perpetrator that should have gone to jail for that. But he was working with all of these organizations like the CIA and DARPA probably, or whatever version of it existed then, in order to get that mission accomplished. And the same thing. So nobody should be surprised that if this does happen, that it might come out of our own country and our own people that are supposed to be defending us. That's what's most atrocious about it. I didn't learn about the Fort Detrick thing, the facts around it, confirmed until many, many years after I was in the Washington, D.C., Northern Virginia area, in Fairfax, Virginia, where my mail carrier people in the facility died, and I was microwaving my mail before my family was allowed to touch it, because that's where we were getting our mail from. I was attacked by my own country. That's crazy. And the reason they did it is Senator Tom Daschle had control over these capabilities and had a big say in what America was going to do post 9/11, and they were targeting him. That's where the first letter went, if I remember right, to his office.
And it's interesting. He's reportedly sitting on this bioweapon committee here.
Probably.
Here it is, the National Blueprint for Biodefense. And there's Tom Ridge, George W. Bush, Secretary of Homeland Security, and there's Tom Daschle.
Right.
So you would not be shocked if rogue actors within our own deep state intelligence arena carried out a bio attack on America, blamed it on Russia in order to give Americans the stomach for going to war with Russia and joining NATO in warring against Russia.
No, not at all. There's good credible evidence that indicates that they may have been involved in the COVID-19 attack.
Well, they were there. They were at the event 201. The CIA was there.
Yeah. We funded it. So.
RobManus.com every day, 2 p.m. Central, 3 Eastern, right here, Worldview Tube, and at RobManus.com. Always enjoy talking to you. Appreciate your service to our country. And I hope people will tune into his show and visit RobManus.com and read his bio, folks. Read his bio. And then tweet, text, email, Facebook, Getter, True Social, whatever you do, send his bio all over the place. Send it all over the place and say two things. Number one, hey, Americans, do you know about this Colonel Rob Manus guy? Read his bio and know that he's got an hour show every day at 2 p.m. Central, 3 Eastern at Worldview Tube. Number two, why has this guy not been tapped to go into the Pentagon and help? Those are 2 really good questions that should go viral. Are you listening to Rob Manus' show? Why is he not in the Pentagon? Closing comment?
Just thank you for having me on, Brandon. Let's keep getting the word and the message of truth spread.
Absolutely. Colonel Rob Manus, thank you, sir. Colonel Rob Manus checking in. Now, folks, with all that's going on in the world, why on earth? Look, I'm not suggesting you do anything I haven't done, okay? I go back to saying that a lot. But I started stocking up on freeze-dried food and things like crazy in 2013. And then when I mentioned it on the air in 2016, everybody wanted to know what'd you get, where'd you get it, how do I get it? So we put together this website. That's right, we got Israeli gas masks. We sold a ton of those last year. There's a train derailment in your town. Are you going to be able to don a gas mask and get out? Or are you going to be like in Palestine, Ohio, and have to breathe it all in? Hey, we got out of town, but after sitting in traffic for an hour or 2 hours, breathing all in, good luck. Hope your health survives that 5 years down the road. Or would you have a gas mask to put on and get out of town if a train derailment happened in your town, the wind's blowing your way? Or what if there is some kind of bio attack? I have one of these for every one of my family members. I know right where they're at. And then you've got, of course, seeds. You've got 100-hour candles. You've got the freeze-dried food. You've got suture kits for stitches. I got a couple doctors live in my neighborhood. I've used one of them to stitch up a couple people. One day I called him. He's like, I could do it, but I don't have the sutures at home. You get the sutures? I can always stitch someone up. So I got suture kits. You can buy them by themselves. You can buy our EMT kit. Have an EMT trauma kit ready to go. If you have a doctor, nurse practitioner, blood clot, ready-hour blood clot. The ability to make a small little fire in the solo stove, put your pots over that, and boil the water. And we sell the pots too. They're on here somewhere. I don't know where they are, but they're on here. Let's see. I don't know. They're on here. I've seen them. Go back this way. I don't know. They're on here. Hopefully they haven't fallen off. The pots, the solo stove pots. There they are. There they are, right there. As a dog, it would have bit me. Solo stove 2-pot set right there. 6-hour canned heat. Now let's go. That's the emergency supplies. Now this emergency food. Oh, by the way, look at that. Look at that. Potassium iodide. Protect your thyroid in the event of a nuclear event. You might want to have some of that on hand, like I have right here. Okay? Because something happens, you're gonna have a hard time getting your hands on that. I'll tell you what's going to happen. A lot of people are going to wait when they really, really need it, and it is not going to be available to them. Freeze-dried food, we got survival coffee, Franklin's finest survival coffee, Ready Hour Ultimate Breakfast, Ready Hour Mega Protein with real meat, Ready Hour Veggie and Snack Mix, gluten-free. You can do a 3-month, 6 months, a year. I've got over 2.5 years of freeze-dried food because I would also want to barter with some of it if I had to. So there, it's all there, folks. Worldviewstore.com, worldviewstore.com. Take this stuff seriously. You can, if you want to buy from us and help support our network, keep us pushing out free programming, that'd be great. So thank you for buying it from us, but get it somewhere, folks. Get prepared if you're not. And like me, you're probably always adding. You're always adding to your preparedness because these are very dangerous times. All right? Worldviewstore.com. We'll be right back. July 6, 2005. This is Tom Harper. Man figures plankton stopped his rare cancer. We got more of a response from our viewers than anything else you and I have ever discussed.
Tom Harper, 20 years ago, he had mesothelioma, deadly lung cancer, was given weeks to live, and he just intuitively started to eat the phytoplankton out of his fish tanks because he fed the phytoplankton to his shellfish. He was a shellfish farmer. And when he went in for the surgery, the surgeon came out of the operating room and told his family, I have not ever seen anything like it. The cancer is benign, and Tom Harper lived for years. He retired in Hawaii. We're not making any claim.
Here he is in his own words.
Started on a daily routine of just taking a bit of paste, putting it in my mouth, and wash it down with a drink of water. Within about 10 to 15 days, here I am, less pain in my back. I knew that something was going on, so I just kept eating half a teaspoon of this paste a day. I was booked to go for surgery in Victoria where they were going to do what they call a talc treatment. They went in there to have a look, saw something they'd never seen before, took 11 sites, sent them away for biopsy. I got the news back. Everything was benign. They were just did not know what to make of it. Everything was absolutely clean. And I've tried dieting all my life because I'm a diabetic. If it's a coincidence or not, I don't know. My blood sugar started dropping. My weight started falling off. Here I am, no longer requiring insulin, and I was taking 88 units a day of insulin. I can eat just about what I want in moderation, and I have no elevated sugar levels, and I feel fabulous.
People, you hear the word cancer and they want you to be instilled with fear. Cancer is nothing but a profound failure of the immune system. And what happened with Tom Harper is the phytoplankton is microscopic. It's God's microscopic food. And the Gaditana is the most nutritionally comprehensive strain phytoplankton in the world. David Hunter studied phytoplankton for 20 years because he worked for Tom Harper and he was there in person and witnessed Tom's recovery. It's about getting pure nutrition inside your cells. And what happens, your body balances again or goes back to homeostasis. And when your body is pH balanced or in homeostasis, disease can't grow. It is literally microscopic, pure single cell plant food with protein and omega-3 fatty acids, omega-6 fatty acids, with amino acids and vitamins and minerals. 1 scoop a day. There's 90 billion plant cells in here just for everyday nutrition and energy and, cognitive support, because this is God's pure nutrition.
Go to melissahousegpa.com today. Discover the science and learn more about the wonderful benefits of Gaditana phytoplankton. That's melissahousegpa.com, melissahousegpa.com.